The final act. Let's go.
Lisa explained that systematically monitoring a coworker's behavior, documenting their social interactions, and creating a hostile environment through constant discussion and complaint could actually constitute workplace harassment under company policy. She said that while our feelings were valid, our response to the situation had crossed some lines and made other employees uncomfortable. The meeting ended with Lisa telling me that they weren't going to take any action against Dan because his behavior, while perhaps unfriendly, didn't violate any company policies and was actually within his rights as an employee. But she said that Megan, Sarah, and I would need to attend mandatory sensitivity training about appropriate workplace behavior and professional boundaries. She also mentioned that they'd be monitoring the situation to make sure there were no further incidents of harassment or hostile behavior. I walked out of that meeting feeling completely humiliated and confused. How had a situation where we were clearly being discriminated against turned into us being the ones in trouble? I still believe that Dan's behavior was wrong and unfair, but apparently, the company disagreed and thought that we were the problem. It was the most frustrating and invalidating experience I'd ever had at work, and I had no idea how to process what had just happened. The aftermath of that HR meeting was honestly the most humiliating and devastating period of my entire career, and I'm still trying to process how everything went so completely wrong when I was just trying to address legitimate workplace discrimination. What happened next was like watching my professional life implode in slow motion, and the worst part is that everyone acted like I deserved it. Within a week of our sensitivity training sessions, word had somehow spread throughout the entire office about the investigation and its outcome. I never found out exactly who leaked the information, but suddenly everyone knew that Megan, Sarah, and I had filed harassment complaints against Dan, and that HR had concluded we were the ones engaging in inappropriate behavior. The looks I started getting from coworkers were a mixture of awkwardness, judgment, and sometimes outright hostility, like I'd become this toxic person who created drama and made everyone's work life more difficult. The social dynamics in our department completely shifted, and not in our favor. People who used to include us in lunch plans and casual conversations started keeping their distance, like they were afraid we'd document their interactions and file complaints about them too. Even worse, I noticed that several coworkers were going out of their way to be extra friendly and inclusive with Dan, almost like they were making a point about how unreasonable our complaints had been. Watching him get treated like some kind of victim who needed protection from us was absolutely infuriating. My relationship with Megan and Sarah started falling apart too, which was devastating because I thought we were united in this situation. Sarah was the first to turn on me, claiming that I'd pressured her into filing the complaint and that she'd never really thought Dan's behavior was that problematic. She said she'd just gone along with it because she didn't want to disagree with me, but now she regretted getting involved and blamed me for the professional consequences she was facing. Megan held out longer, but eventually, she started making comments about how maybe we'd misread the situation and that we should have just accepted Dan's professional boundaries instead of making such a big deal about everything. The final blow came when I learned that Dan had been offered a promotion to a different department effective immediately. HR framed it as a lateral move that would be beneficial for his career development, but it was obvious that they were rewarding him for handling our complaints professionally while essentially removing him from our toxic presence. Meanwhile, I had this formal reprimand in my file that would affect my performance reviews and any future promotion opportunities. Dan got advancement and validation while I got labeled as a troublemaker who couldn't handle normal workplace interactions. What made everything even worse was that I started experiencing exactly the kind of social isolation that I'd accused Dan of creating. Coworkers would have conversations that stopped when I approached, lunch invitations mysteriously didn't include me, and there was this general atmosphere of people being polite but distant whenever they had to interact with me. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now the one eating lunch alone and feeling excluded from office social dynamics. But unlike Dan's situation, mine was the direct result of my own actions and poor judgment. My work performance started suffering because I was so distracted and demoralized by the whole situation. I'd spend half my day obsessing over how unfairly I'd been treated and trying to figure out how to salvage my reputation instead of focusing on my actual job responsibilities. My supervisor started making comments about my attitude and productivity, which only added to my stress and made me realize that my position at the company might not be secure long term. The worst part of all this is that I still don't fully understand how I became the villain in a situation where I genuinely believed I was addressing workplace discrimination. Dan continues to maintain his professional boundaries with female colleagues, which apparently everyone now sees as perfectly reasonable and appropriate, while I'm stuck with this reputation as someone who creates unnecessary drama and can't handle professional relationships like a mature adult.
I'll be fair. She just wanted to have a family dynamic when she goes to work. I'm not saying I don't understand that. I'm not saying I didn't see it. I do. But you got to understand that's not for everybody. I've worked in family owned businesses and I've seen them betray each other in front of our faces. Sometimes it's better to just get in and get out. You don't got to be everybody's friend and you don't need everybody to like you. It's fact. In terms of the whole promotion thing and her practically being, you know what I'm saying, blackballed, I won't get into that. I don't know how that politics works. I'm leaving that alone. But I'm glad he was able to, you know what I'm saying, get past his previous employment's, issues and found the best way to work with it. In terms of them betraying each other, I feel like that was bound to happen. I don't got another way to look at it. How do you see it? This is that final chapter. Let's talk about it.